Lockdown Effectiveness Part 3. Did lockdown work? The final batch of countries listed in Wikipedia, as that didn't include Canada, may not be quite final. Note to censors, we use only government data. If you have a problem with the results, speak to the government. A reminder, for lockdown to work, it has to change the trajectory of the virus. You can study the path of the cases or deaths or the rate of growth of the cases or deaths, but it is inadequate to say that lockdown worked. The rate of growth is declining. The rate of growth of cases or deaths is always declining in a normal contagion. Beyond that, to understand the issue in more detail, check out parts 1 or 2 of this lockdown effectiveness series. Here's where we are so far. I'll put it full screen for a second. Northern Cyprus first, or not. That turns out to be the Turkish segment, whereas World Health Organization Cyprus is presumably the whole island. So we don't have data, no result. Pakistan. March 24th to 9th May. Obvious, isn't it? Not really. They managed to start lockdown at the end of an early outbreak, have it become effective while nothing is happening, and then sit back as the contagion goes on to be massive relative to the pre-lockdown. Nice job. Not useful though, no result. Panama. Another late bloomer with a rather bizarre constant cases per day in April-May. Good early downline. Are we going to be lucky, punk? We are, as it happens. 25th March, Ferguson Day +2, and right in the middle of that long early downline. Perfectly good channel, well defined, no effect, lockdown fail. Papua New Guinea. Seriously? Even I'm tempted to say, I guess it worked, huh? There's nothing there, quite literally in deaths. Oh well, let's do this. And lockdown starts with nothing happening, becomes effective with nothing happening, is over, it was 24th March to 7th April apparently, before anything happens, one spike in the post-out incubation period, and a big spike on the 17th or so. I feel this is a case of promoting birth control by giving nuns condoms. With 6 data points in 3 months, I don't think we're into analysis here. No result. Paraguay, and I was just reflecting on how much invaluable data the governments around the world have given us, and yet how little use they have made of it, at least none to recognize the true nature. Inconvenient, perhaps? And a nice result, well-defined channel all the way through from prior, mid, post-lockdown pre-effective and post-effective. No change, no effect, lockdown fail. Peru. March 16th to 30th of June. Frustrating, but the outbreak is over before lockdown becomes nominally effective. The long-term growth decline for the main contagion continues perfectly normally, and they break lockdown after it's over. Sadly, we're going to have to say no result. Poland. Nice long decline. Let's hope they lock down in the middle of that, 13th of March to 11th of April. And they do. How kind. Nice established growth decline channel, pre, mid and post, no change, no effect, lockdown fail. Portugal. So tight we've included the end as well, mid-primary contagion. And look at that, nice consistent gradient all the way through. A mini outbreak after the primary on the way down for an uptick, but the gradient resumes normally. Lockdown fail. Republic of Congo, Congo RO, aka Congo, and not DRC Congo. Confused? You will be. 31st March to 20th of April. Well, I put both on, beginning and end, given the repeated outbreaks, but the lockdown starts as the outbreak ends, not much help, and ends as the outbreak ends. So both are effective as the growth sets up for the next outbreak. Pity, no result. Romania. (25th March to 12th of May). Nice consistent downline, before, mid and after, no effect, lockdown fail. Rwanda. (21st March to 19th April). A very nice channel, pre, mid and post, no effect, lockdown fail. Who'd have imagined that Rwanda held the keys to our freedom? Yet all these nations, all these charts would have been invaluable had the government chosen to look. That they did not tells you everything you need to know. Samoa, no data, no result. San Marino. 14th March to 5th of May. It starts as it's setting up after a first outbreak and becomes effective halfway through a second series. The pre and post in outbreak descent similar, and once clear it continues to decline normal. Everything normal, but a bit choppy to be definitive. No result. Serbia. 15th of March to 21st April. A bit soft as it enters, having recovered from a first mini outbreak, but then blends into that dash blue autofit growth decline line extremely well. One long normal outbreak, and when it's clear, the decline continues rather than the rush of new cases. I'd have preferred the first part to be on a proper downline, but clearly there's no sharp divergence down, the outbreak proceeds normally, and there's no sharp divergence up once clear. Consistent, normal, no effect, lockdown fail. Singapore, this will be interesting given that it's a city-state and so comparable to the city and state of New York. Not that we'll be doing that here, but still curious to see what we've got. The downline starts just as the lockdown becomes effective and the outbreak proper begins. But it is consistent with 4 other mini outbreaks, and when the lockdown ends, the cases continue to decline, showing no resurgence. Lockdown fail. South Africa, one of a number of countries where it looked like they had it sorted, only to have a primary infection much later. Sneaky little sucker, huh? Lockdown starts mid-downline, which is great, but the outbreak is over before it can become effective. Then they come off lockdown, and it has no effect on the near flat growth decline line. No sudden divergence upward. Perfectly normal on entry, perfectly normal on exit. But we haven't got that clear continuation post-effective. Going the wrong way could be considered definitive, but that's the outbreak resetting naturally. Sadly, just going to have to say this looks normal, but we'll call it a no result. Spain, one of the most fraudulent countries in our chart update series, but maybe it can find redemption in giving us a useful result here. By the way, notice that horizontal at peak on the deaths chart. Smart virus or canny politicians? A long consistent downtrend starting with a micro outbreak, so we have pre, mid and post. Softens at peak, but as it comes out of lockdown, even though there are still cases, there's no sudden revival. All very normal. Lockdown fail. Sri Lanka. Land of the spikes. Again, the outbreak is over before lockdown becomes effective, so no result. 5 outbreaks, no distinction versus second wave. Outbreaks happen, all with similar gradient to the first prior. There's a spike after clear of lockdown, but 2 spikes, one larger mid-lockdown. If we allow that spike as evidence of lockdown success, then every contagion that raged high after lockdown condemns no results to fail. I'll stick with no result. Frankly, while we're not using it as a determinant of fail, it doesn't say much for lockdown if when everyone's safe in their homes, a much larger contagion can rage, does it? But hey, it could have been worse. No, all the fails say it could not. That was it. Thailand. Early start and long history. Let's see what happens 25th of March to 31st of May. How nice. Dead centre in the main downline. Well established, consistent, prior, mid, post. No effect, lockdown fail. And end of lockdown ends a mini outbreak. No further significant resurgence, no second wave. Trinidad, not much there, but we'll see. 17th March to 31st March, at least they respected the period of the actual contagion. And what do you know? Clean channel prior, mid, post, and no resurgent contagion after lockdown end. Nice result, no effect, lockdown fail. Tunisia. (22nd March to 19th April), fairly tight, good for them. And look at that, but I find it bizarre but delightful that secondary countries that we wouldn't think of as central to this experience turn out to have such valuable data in their experience. But maybe that's the point, uncontaminated. We see the true story. Whatever, that's a near perfect prior mid-post channel, tight line, pretty much ruler straight. Love it. No effect, lockdown fail. Ukraine. (17th March to 24th April). And again, a nice result from a secondary, non-agenda, non-Far East nation. Clean and consistent downtrend, had a micro outbreak early, hence the dip. Prior mid-post, no effect, lockdown fail. UAE. (26th March to 17th April). I do like these countries that respect their people enough to close out lockdowns once the contagion is declining. Did someone forget in the UK that we were only supposed to be flattening the curve? Instead of second wave virus, we've experienced wave after wave of new memes to keep the crisis going. 1. Massive threat. 2. Lockdown. 3. No normal till the vaccine. 4. Delayed peak. 5. Can think about softening lockdown maybe. 6. Masks. 7. Vaccines discovered and despite no testing they're totally safe. And 8. Well, we're now on 8, one way in shops. 9. Mandatory masks. So 10 maybe. Articles arguing for compulsory vaccination. Dr. Mengele would be proud, and that's in the Telegraph. So yes, it's nice to see a country respecting its citizens more than the agenda. UAE then. Rather priceless actually, one long downtrend channel through the entire cycle. A few micro outbreaks oscillating the curve, but totally comfortable with downtrend as there must be to have the normal. No effect, lockdown fail. UK next, but you know what? Let's save the arch agenda nation till last. Just a couple more to go, so Venezuela. (17th March to 13th of May). A bunch of minor outbreaks, but the downline channel is well defined with a prior, mid and post. At the end of lockdown, a similar descending channel with no change either at start or end. No effect, lockdown fail. Vietnam. I do love Vietnam. It had a death but cancelled it. Literally, one day one death was reported, next day back to 0. Priceless. Guess it was untidy having that one death. 0 has such a nice ring to it. 1st of April to 22nd of April. Nice descending channel, bit sparse the data so you can see individual outbreaks, one mid-lockdown to post, but well defined overall and good fit to autofit normal. Prior, mid and post, no effect, lockdown fail. Zimbabwe, 30th of March to 2nd of May. Spike City, the first outbreak with lockdown in the middle, is over before lockdown is effective. A series of outbreaks and as so often a late primary. With effective falling between outbreaks, we have to give it a no result. So the UK, fraud central, and what priceless charts. Note the growth decline going horizontal in both cases and deaths at peak, and so the government milked the contagion, obtaining a massively prolonged crisis with exaggerated cases and deaths. March, hardly a date I have to look up, but did check that it's what Wiki is saying. Ruler straight, massively extended, making it probably the best and most definitive example available. No effect, lockdown fail, and will somebody please put the perpetrators in jail? And what the heck, by request, Canada. Yes, we'll take a look at the US, but I believe it was pretty much done by state, so it's going to take some work. A search online suggests the country went into lockdown on March 18th, so I'll work with that. Well, I'm sure this comes as a surprise, but there you go. Perfect channel, well established, prior, mid and post, no change, lockdown fail. In case any of you want to start forming a militia to get your independence back, inspired by Officer and a Gentleman, a rebel chant. I don't know, but I've been told they locked us down, not just the old. It was fraud and a complete fail. Our politicians and scientists belong in jail. And for nostalgia, from 3 months ago, the original, and rather higher quality I suspect, bespoke growth analysis for the UK. 3 months of fraud and no one out there noticed. So there's the summary of this batch. I'll put it full screen with the first 2 batches. 72 countries, 52 fail, 18 no result, 2 no data. Anyone claiming it's difficult to measure the effect of lockdown? No, it isn't. Nobody questions the impact on GDP, and here's a chart of GDP growth rates and quarterly changes, same essentially as our growth rates and daily cases. So whether it's 6.9% or 25% or whatever, it's pretty damn noticeable. So no, that's total BS, and as with the rest of COVID, they don't do the analysis and tell you it's uncertain because they don't want you to know the result. Well, now you know. They did this to our economy on a whim to suit an agenda and were owed big time. And if they want to claim lockdown worked, well, guess what? Not one nation of the 72 we checked showed any impact or divergence. Those with no result, we were being fair based on needing a before and after. They looked perfectly normal, but this way we can happily show every fail in court, and the UK is the best of the lot. 0 doubt, and 4 months later, still nobody noticed. Chris Whitty's admission that maybe we didn't need to lock down is exactly what I warned about. Mistakes were made. Gosh, but we're not evil. Just one of those things. This was planned, and we're still in the middle of it with mandatory masks. What we've long shown, is that the government never had an excuse to go into lockdown, and that having done so, lockdown had no effect. All we've done now is prove that was a worldwide phenomenon. Still, like every exercise, it's worth doing, I hope. It's strange to recall my rushing up to London on the night lockdown was announced to put it right. How naive, but at least I was smart enough to realise they'd thought it through and decided. I didn't knock on number 10. That's it for now. I'm Andrew Mather, a 60-year-old Brit, mathematician, financier, technologist, husband, piker, pilot, healer, whatever. Feel free to get in touch, andrew@peerlessreads.com or andrew@amather.com. Either should get to me.